Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abby, and today we're going to be talking about the planets in your chart. Everyone normally says, oh, my Saturn is in Capricorn, or my Neptune is in whatever. And obviously, if you are not versed in astrology, you don't understand what that means. So today, what I'm going to be talking about is what each of those planets mean. So every planet in our solar system, all 7 or 8 of them, RIP Pluto, they all rule a certain aspect of us. But the big 3 that you really need to know that people pay attention to the most are your sun, your moon, and your rising signs. So your sun sign is based on the day you were born. It's the most common sign that people talk about. The sun is ruled by Leo, and your sun sign is basically who you are. It's basically your personality, I guess. It's the person that you portray to the outside world. Your moon sign is a little different. It depends on the time that you were born. Your moon sign is how you feel. So it's you when you're alone, if that makes sense. So your moon sign is your emotions, your intuition, your habits, what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel secure. Often it governs the emotions that you try to hide. So again, it's how you feel about yourself. It's how you are when you are alone. That's why a lot of people, they don't exhibit like characteristics that are typical for their sign. So say a Taurus sun and a Cancer moon, they might not be as headstrong or as stubborn as a normal Taurus would be because of their Cancer moon. It offsets that. Your rising sign is a little bit different to your moon sign in the sense that it's your genuine and general impression on other people. It's more of your spontaneous decisions with other people, if that makes sense. So it's more based on when people get to know you, and when you make split-second decisions, that's more representative. Your rising sign is basically like when you make split-second decisions, that is where your rising sign comes into play, if that makes sense. Those are your big 3. Your sun sign, which is based on the day you were born, your moon sign, which is based on the time you were born, and your rising sign is also based on the time you were born. But your moon sign and your moon sign doesn't fluctuate as much. Your rising sign, it changes every 2 hours. So it's very crucial for you to determine the exact time you were born. You can normally find your moon sign without your time. It's nice to know, but normally you don't really need it if you don't know what it is. All of the other planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, they all govern different aspects of how you are. Every planet changes signs quickly. So with Mercury, the retrograde is the shortest because its revolution around the sun is the shortest. And Pluto's retrograde is the longest. So every planet, it determines different aspects of who you are. So with Mercury, it is about communication. So it's thinking. It's how you deal with your thoughts, how you communicate your thoughts to others, all of that. Going into retrograde, actually, I should explain retrograde real quick. Retrograde is when a planet looks like it's moving backwards in its revolution. It means that everything that it controls is out of whack. Every planet has different lengths of retrogrades. As I said before, Pluto's would be the longest, simply because it has the longest revolution. Mercury's is the shortest, and it also happens more often. This year, I believe we had 3, maybe 4 retrogrades of Mercury. We're in the 3rd one right now. I think there's one more in like October, November time, something like that. You can look it up. I'll put it in the description. Mercury is basically, Mercury is very focused on communication. So your Mercury sign is going to be how you communicate to others. With Venus, it is I love. So if you're starting to notice some correlations with the Roman gods and goddesses, you're correct, because the Roman gods and goddesses were named after the planets. And I'm pretty sure this is where all of the associations came from as well, because if anyone knows Roman mythology, Venus was Aphrodite, which is the goddess of love. So this planet rules your love life. It rules how you attract people, who you are attracted to, your social skills, how affectionate you are, all of that stuff. With a Venus retrograde, it's hard for you to like start romantic relationships or continue them, or you really get muddled with your feelings for people. So it's very hard for you not to communicate, but just to understand your own feelings about other people. Venus basically rules your love life. And when it goes into retrograde, it screws it all up. So if you've ever had a relationship that's failed based on you can't figure out your feelings for each other, you can probably blame Venus retrograde. Probably. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors going on here, but that could have been something that was affecting it. So Mars rules how you act. It's your motivation, your initiative, your aggression, confidence, your drive, your physical strength, all of that stuff. Pretty much any person who has had their Mars placement in Aries has normally been a good athlete of some sort, or has had ability to be a good athlete. So when Mars retrograde happens, you tend to not be as good at like your sport, or maybe you lack strength, or maybe you don't feel very strong in yourself or something like that. That would be because of Mars retrograde. So Jupiter is I grow. So it affects your ethics, your philosophy, where you want to learn, all of that stuff. So basically, it kind of rules your college major, I guess, or what you're interested in. Basically, how you think about the world and how you grow. So when Jupiter goes into retrograde, you don't tend to say your beliefs very often to other people. So Saturn's a weird planet. It tends to be extremely serious. It is also ruled by Capricorn. And Capricorn does tend to be one of the more quote-unquote serious signs. It describes restrictions, limitations, boundaries, all of that stuff. It also oversees your career and your wealth. It helps you understand what you want to achieve in life. Do you want to be rich? Do you not care about money? All of that good stuff. So if it was in retrograde when you were born, you tend to feel responsible for your failures. If it was stationary, tend to be more goal-oriented and disciplined, and you tend to want to succeed. If it's in retrograde when you were born, you tend to be a little more iffy and tend to take things a little more personally when they happen. If it was stationary, you're the exact opposite. You are determined to succeed no matter what. Nothing will stand in your way, basically. So Uranus is I evolve. So it's where you stand out, what makes you rebel, where you'll find change. It's about sudden change, basically. So it's kind of the same as Jupiter with your growth. It's a little bit different. Kind of when you have that eureka moment. It's kind of like when a Pokemon levels up, it just levels up and learns new things. That's Jupiter. When it evolves, it becomes something completely different. It becomes something bigger and better. That's a really bad metaphor, and it's also a very nerdy metaphor, but it's a very good metaphor for how I'm going about this. So Uranus is how you evolve, how you become a different person. You can grow, and that's fine, but you need to evolve into someone else at some point, and that's where those aha moments come in. They push you further than just growth. They make you into a different person. So Neptune is I dream. So it's a little bit more of an airy-fairy planet, quote-unquote. It basically governs what inspires you. What do you need to look at in order to get inspiration to, like, do art or do whatever you want to do with, like, your job or something like that? It's a difficult planet as well because it governs addictions, like a drug addiction or alcoholism or like a food eating disorder or something like that. It's a tricky planet, and it's not fun. Obviously, sometimes you do need a break from reality, and that's fine, but you can't run away from it forever. And if you don't have a good placement in Neptune, you do tend to be a little more kind of out there, I guess, for lack of a better word. If it was in retrograde when you were born, you have a tendency to escape from reality in any way, shape, or form. If it was stationary, you tend to be a little more artistic, but not super realistic. You tend to be more probably into like the surrealism or abstract instead of like painting a picture of a church or something like that. Things that just aren't connected to reality. So whether it's in retrograde or not, it's how you escape from reality when things get stressful. You have to make sure that you control what it is that helps you escape from reality. And then the last and final planet I still call it a planet because it is. We have Pluto. Pluto is where you feel powerless, where you get more power from, all of that good stuff. So basically power. That's Pluto. If it was in retrograde when you were born, your inner beliefs change over time, so you tend to be a little bit more fluid in how you think, and you tend to anticipate change better. If it was direct, you have a lot of power to determine, all right, this is good, this is bad, this is how I'm going to think for the rest of my life. So, as I said previously, Pluto has a very long revolution. So it tends to go from generation to generation. And if you notice, a lot of people who were born in like the 40s and 50s and 60s are very set in their ways. And people like me, in my generation, tend to not be like that because we were born during Pluto retrograde. So we are a lot more susceptible to change, which is a good thing because our society is constantly changing. So it helps us to adapt to that change more instead of people who were born when it was stationary, when it is very hard to accept change for them because they've already determined what's positive, what's negative, and they don't anticipate that things are going to change. If you want to grab your chart, I'm going to link the website below. It's astro.com. If you're just looking for your sun, moon, and rising and just knowing that stuff, just go to Cafe Astrology. I'll link that down below as well. The legendary CoStar app is also really good. I believe it's called Chartstrology. They have a Twitter account. I'll link that below as well. They have a really good description of like all of your placements, and it's super straightforward. It makes so much sense. You don't need to get into like nodes and all of that stuff. I'll get into houses next video. It talks about your chart, basically. It gives you an in-depth look at it. It's a little more in-depth than what Cafe Astrology and Astro.com do, so I personally like it. I don't really look at it a lot, mainly because I looked at it once for my chart and kind of never looked at it again, but you can go in there and look at it every day if you want to. CoStar gives you daily updates, tell you what you're going to be most powerful in today and what you're probably going to struggle in and what you need to focus on, which is great. If you are easily triggered by some things, you may not want to get CoStar yet because it does tend to be a little bit abrasive. If you don't mind that, CoStar is a great app to have. So that is the end of the video for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next week, I will be posting a tarot reading. You will probably see me in a different area because I will be at my boyfriend's apartment. I will be posting the next tarot reading on Sunday, and then next week I am planning on talking about housing placements, mainly because that is another aspect of your chart that you see on all of those astrology apps and websites. And that also helps you determine other parts of like who you are and your personality and all of that. So I hope you enjoyed the video this week, and I will see you next week.